Is owning a home on hold for you now? Do you want to change that? And what would it mean to get your family into a home now? If you're ready for a new start, then check out these 4 renter-friendly tips to buy any home. Let's get started. Hey everyone, I'm Rinde from AskRinde. Welcome. Please subscribe to the #1 community for real estate, income, grants, and credit. So what's the difference between a house and a home? Whether you live in an apartment, condo, or house, do you want to just live somewhere, or do you want to plant your family in comfort and security? So a house is just a roof over your head. It's where you rest, make memories, raise your children, send your children off to college and have them come back and embrace everyone as a family. But you have to buy that home right to protect it, to protect your peace, your tranquility, and your family's foundation. Over the last 20 years as a real estate agent here in New Jersey, I've seen many people buy incorrectly and actually lose their home, lose their investment, and also lose their peace and security. So in this video, I'd like to share with you 4 rental-friendly tips to help you buy your home correctly. So the first tip is you need to test affordability. So it's not just about the purchase price and what you're paying for the home. It's everything else that goes along with it. Buying a house is not just buying a house and getting a mortgage. It's much more. There are all the expenses that go along with the house for the maintenance, the upkeep, and much more. And you have to be practical because it's actually a financial decision. And you want to make sure that you're making a sound decision, that you're well informed, and you need to plug in the numbers. So many times I see people who are purchasing, whether it's clients that we're using or we're helping to be able to purchase property, whether they're buying their first time property or they're buying actually an investment property to grow their portfolio. We make sure that we go over the numbers with them and plug in all the numbers so that they can actually get a full picture of what the monthly cost would be to carry that property. You don't want to just buy property. You don't want to just have the dream of getting your family into a home. You want to actually have the ability to get them into the property and keep them there for 20, 30 years and beyond, if that's your choice. So I often tell our clients who are renting that we're currently helping to buy homes is that the first thing you need to look at, aside from the purchase price, is the taxes. So what are the taxes on that current home that you're looking to buy? And what is the tax ratio in that area? That's going to be indicative of the burden that you're going to be having on that house long term. Because even if you actually keep the house for the entire duration of the mortgage term, 30 years or 40 years, you're always going to have taxes. So you want to make sure that you look at the taxes first. And if the taxes are $12,000 or $13,000, they're very high on the property, then you know that no matter what, even if you pay the house off, you're going to actually have that tax burden every single month. So the first thing you need to look at is actually the taxes, because the taxes will always be with you. Regardless of whether or not you have the deed to the house, regardless of whether or not you pay the house off, you're always going to have the taxes. Another thing to consider are your closing costs. So many times when you get a mortgage, there's going to be closing costs that are associated with actually being able to purchase the property. Aside from that, you're going to have things such as home inspections. You're going to have appraisals. If you're in New Jersey or in the Northeast, you may have tank sweeps that are required in order to make sure that you're not buying a house that has actually a tank liability. You want to make sure that you do a tank sweep, because if there is a tank in the ground and it actually has oil leaking, or there's rust, or there's an opening in a tank that was previously embedded in the ground, and if you purchase that property without doing a tank sweep, it can actually cost you upwards of $60,000 later on to not only pull the tank out of the ground, but also remediate the soil for soil contamination. So these are all things to consider that, aside from your closing costs, you want to do to make sure that you're purchasing the property and you know everything about the property, the age of the roof. If there are layers on the roof, you want to make sure that you actually are up to code, because some towns actually have a limit on how many layers can be put on a roof. These are all things that you need to actually uncover. And also foundational issues, structural issues, whether there's problems with the utilities, etc. You want to make sure that you uncover all of that in your home inspection report and use that as a negotiation tool when you get to that point. Other financial considerations are reserves. So the banks are actually going to want you to have several months of reserves for insurance and also for coverage. In addition to that, if you're buying a house that has an HOA, that's something you also need to consider, because that HOA will actually have a monthly cost that goes along with it. And depending on where you're buying, you want to make sure that you're not buying a property with an HOA that's actually going to be doing a lot of improvements in the future, because if they are, they're actually going to tag you with the bill. So you want to make sure that you are aware of that and what their projected raises could be with the HOA. You don't want to buy a property that has a current HOA of $45 and then find out next year that your HOA fee is actually $600, because in that case, they can actually go through the process if you don't pay the HOA, and they can actually foreclose on your property. So this is something to really consider, and when you're actually looking to buy, specifically if you're buying properties that have HOAs attached to them. Another financial consideration could be garbage. So in some towns, the taxes cover the garbage pickup costs. However, in other towns, you actually pay for garbage every single month. So you want to make sure that you're not having a high bill or having that bill period to begin with for paying for just simply garbage pickup, something that should be part of what you're doing as far as covering in your taxes. They're actually charging you an additional for that. You just need to be aware of where you're purchasing, and that may be a cost that you actually run into. Other financial considerations could be parking. Are you buying in a location that has no parking? Let's say, for example, you're buying a condo and there is no parking that goes along with the condo, which I've actually sold properties to some of our clients, and we made sure when we purchase with condos that there's parking attached, because that's actually another additional cost if you're purchasing a condo that does not have parking attached to it, or if you're buying a house that does not have a driveway. It actually has no driveway whatsoever and there's on-street parking. And there are rules in the town of no overnight parking. That can actually be an additional cost to you, so you want to be aware of that. Also, landscaping, maintenance. Buying a house can actually be very maintenance intensive. So you want to make sure that you're factoring all of these. And the only way you can actually do that is by plugging in the numbers. So we actually have a rent-to-own calculator that we actually help our clients to plug in all the numbers, because they're currently renters and they're going to purchase. So we use our rent-to-own calculator to help them get a picture of what it would actually cost them on a monthly basis to actually carry this house. You want to make sure that you plug in all the numbers, and that's one of the best values because you're not going in blind. You factored in not only what the mortgage payment will be and what the other costs that the mortgage person that's doing your mortgage is telling you, but you're not factoring in all the other costs that come up with the building and what it comes up to actually be to carry that house on a monthly basis. So you're well informed going in, and you're able to actually see beforehand whether or not the house is affordable. You're able to test the affordability. And you can do that with a tool like our rent-to-own calculator. Number 2, so the second renter-friendly tip to buy any home will be to look at the type of home that you're buying. It does matter for 2 reasons: for income and appreciation. Those are the 2 things that you actually want to look at when you're purchasing any property, because on the income side, you want to look at the property really strategically. Can the property bring you income in case you can work? Can the property bring you income in circumstances where you can actually not produce the income to pay for it? Can it help you to pay for itself, and can it produce income? On the other side, you want to look at the appreciation. So on average, we always tell our clients to look at the 7-year appreciation fluctuation, or the 7-year appreciation numbers for any particular property in town and location that they're looking to purchase in. Has a property values appreciated over the last 7 years? And how much has it appreciated? And oftentimes that's going to be based on the type of home in that particular area. Some properties may appreciate better than others. So for example, in a particular city that you're looking to buy in, how are condos appreciation versus single family homes? And how are single family homes appreciating versus 2-family homes or multi-family homes? You need to know what those look like over a 7-year period to get an average, so you can actually see when you purchase the property what your projected equity growth could be, which can actually make a big difference in your position when it comes to the property and your net worth. As I've shared with all of our rental and real estate clients, the best property to actually start with when you're actually going from a renter to purchasing a home is a 2-family property, specifically a 2-family property with a finished basement. That's actually the sweet spot. If you can actually get that type of property, I highly recommend that you go for that first versus a single family home, depending on if you're actually in the part of the country where there are 2 families and duplexes available. This is very important because it's going to give you the best way to start in real estate, where you're moving into a property and you're going to actually have the options for stability, should in case anything happen. So I've gone through several market resets from the 2007, 2008, and I've gone through 2 resets in my real estate career. And I can share with you that I've seen people lose beautiful homes simply because life happened. And this is something that you want to basically factor in and hedge yourself against. So with your first purchase, you want to make it easy to start. And you want to actually put yourself and your family in a position where when you start, you can actually rinse and repeat and continue buying more property. And the best way to do that would be to buy a 2-family or duplex property first, so you can actually live in that property and eventually move on to a single family property. Now, why I share 2-family is because some towns actually have specific guidelines when it comes to 3 to 4 units. Even though those are actually good properties you can actually get and actually keep and do the same thing that you would do with a two family. However, they may have state inspections, they may have other criteria that go along with them that you need to actually pass those inspections and go through those process of having to have certain certifications on an annual basis that you'd actually have to adhere to. Another consideration when you're looking at the type of home is, does the home have a driveway? So as I've shared earlier, there are some homes that you can actually purchase that don't have a driveway. That can actually make a difference when it comes to your income on the property as well as your appreciation. In addition to that, a backyard. So as we saw with the pandemic, many people turned their homes into their retreats. When we couldn't go out, people actually start to look within. And so one of the key things was we saw backyard renovations. We saw people put pools in their backyards and made their backyards vacation spots. You want to make sure that when you're purchasing and your type of home has a backyard that you can actually use to have your family go out, enjoy, and basically breathe and just basically have their own space and their tranquil space they can enjoy outside if there's a case where we go back into restrictions. And the third renter-friendly tip and key to buy any home would be to look at the financing. So there are many different types of financing available for you to be able to buy a home. You can actually buy a property on a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage or a 40-year mortgage. You can buy a home with an FHA mortgage, an FHA 2 or 3K mortgage, a conventional mortgage. There are also other hybrid mortgages that are available, such as bank statement mortgages for self-employed or entrepreneurs. They also have non-QM loans that are available for those people who actually don't have the paperwork, but they're willing to pay a higher interest rate to be able to get the money to purchase the properties. There's also seller financing available. 40% of the properties in the US actually are owned free and clear. So there's seller financing available more than you may know. In addition to that, there's also grants available. Many people don't know that there are grants for real estate to not only help you purchase the property, but to help you build your real estate portfolio. And we've been actually exercising and using this and teaching those in our network this for years. How to actually access grants for real estate is something that does exist. So understanding all the different financing options can have you well informed as a renter before you actually make the purchase to buy your home. And the fourth renter-friendly tip to buy any home would be to make a friendly purchase. So what is a friendly purchase? So a friendly purchase is something that I've experienced over the last 20 years in my real estate career. And a friendly purchase is when you buy correctly. So you want to make sure that you're buying an asset and not a liability. And most people actually look at properties, many times they first start with emotions and then they deal with logic. They start looking at the numbers. And I've seen people who are actually driven more by emotion than logic. So a friendly purchase is where you actually buy correctly. You actually do the math and you look at all the numbers. And you also factor in variables of what could happen later on. We always share with our clients that you want to make sure that even though you're moving into the property and you currently have a job, what would happen in case, God forbid, something happens where you don't have your job, you don't have your income? Can that property help you? Can that property help you to keep it? Because we find that most people go into foreclosure because they purchase emotionally and they don't factor in what could happen. And I can tell you that for sure, life happens. There are many circumstances where I've sold properties to various ranges of people who were making $1 million a year, people making hundreds of $1,000s a year, or people who were making tens of $1,000s a year. But life happens. You have a guy who's making $2 million and that calls you 3 years later and tells you that he's lost everything. And you have to help him either sell the property or find a place to rent while we solve trying to figure out how to keep his property. There are so many different variables that I can go through and share, but you want to make sure that you're making a friendly purchase. So just like how we've been sharing these renter-friendly tips, you want to see how you can actually position yourself to use the tools that we've shared, such as our rent-to-own calculator and also grants for real estate, to put the picture together of the best affordable position that you can be in to go into a home. So when you're renting, your responsibilities are less. You're simply responsible for the space that you live in, and your rent is due on the 1st, probably with a grace period up until the 5th until you get hit with a service fee or a late fee. However, you don't have this stability. What happens if the landlord decides to sell? What happens if they actually raise the rent on you and you can't afford it any longer? You're going to be pushed out. Now, on the other hand, when you buy a home, your responsibilities are more. However, instead of paying your mortgage or your rent on the 1st, you actually have up until the 15th without actually incurring any type of late fee or negative reporting on your credit. In addition to that, you actually have the value of using the property for income. You also have the value of property appreciation that can greatly increase your net worth. So if you're buying into a property and you're acquiring this property for a certain amount and the market rides up, regardless of what you do or what you don't do, that rise is actually going to continually increase your net worth. So that actually is a huge difference when it comes to renting versus buying. So what would allow you to experience and test these 4 renter-friendly tips? To number 1, test the affordability of the home. And number 2, looking at the types of home that you're going to be buying to make a proper decision. And number 3, looking at the financing. How do you actually look at how you will buy the property? And what can you use for financing to purchase the property? And finally, number 4, how can you actually make a friendly purchase? Well, all these 4 factors are covered under rent to own. And this is something I've been talking about here for years, that rent to own is the bridge in real estate. It actually helps you get from one side to the next, from a renter to a buyer and a homeowner. So this is actually one of the best ways to test your affordability, to actually get into your home now without waiting and actually start to see all the things that go along with home ownership while you're on track to actually purchase that property. So we actually have a rent to own masterclass where we share with you these tools, the rent to own calculator, and also grants for real estate. How to get your family started now to buying a home. Regardless of the current interest rate, regardless of the current market conditions, you can actually start your process of renting to own a home and buying that property correctly and making a friendly purchase. So if you'd like to learn more and get access to our rent to own calculator that you can actually use to plug in the numbers, regardless of what properties you're looking at, what areas, you're able to actually cover all of these and really put yourself in the best informed decision before you actually move forward by actually using our rent to own calculator. So if you'd like to get access to our rent to own calculator, you can actually simply go to my website at AskRinde.com, click on rent to own, and get started today. So if you have any questions, if you'd like to share what you think renting versus buying entails, and what is your opinion on renting versus buying, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. And you can also email me anytime. My email address is AskRindeNetwork@gmail.com. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Until next time, thank you so much for watching.